Hello everybody, this is Squibby and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to be talking about some more Project Playtime. Now I know what you're all thinking. Squibby, didn't you just make a video on how to become a god at Project Playtime, immediately followed by Project Playtime is dead? Well, the answer is yes. I did make both of those videos back to back, and unfortunately the Phase 3 update ended up killing most of the strategies that I presented in my God tier tutorial. But today I've decided to stop criticizing the game for 2 seconds and try to help fix it. So in this video, I'm going to be going over a bunch of solutions that I and my community on Discord have come up with for how to fix Project Playtime. So to start off, the matchmaking system, everybody is very familiar with this. You can no longer queue with your friends. It is very, very difficult to get into games with your friends. And even when you're a host, you can't invite people to it. You just have to kind of pray that you end up in the same lobby with people. It just straight up doesn't work because the whole point of a multiplayer experience is being able to play with your friends. And I feel like taking that away was just really not the right direction for this game. And as primitive as the original matchmaking system may feel, it honestly was brilliant because you could see all of the lobbies, you could see who the hosts are. So this is probably like not the best way to look at it, but people who had the worst connections, you would remember them and then not play with them. Because yeah, some people with really terrible connections were just bad hosts. And you could also remember like who were the good hosts and who did you really enjoy playing with, and you see, oh, I remember playing with that person, then join them again. I feel like that system just worked way better in general, and I really hope that system gets brought back. And right after the matchmaking system, we have the lobbies themselves. The old lobby from like the original Phase 1 of the game, I think was a brilliant design because it was really simple, just getting the players into the lobby. But the fact that it was so eerie and the design of the lobby itself, it was super dark. There were areas that you weren't able to see at all. And all of the doors are closed. You can't see what's going on in the building. That added so much mystery to the game, which is something that I personally love about this franchise, is that it is so mysterious because there's so much that we don't know. And the lighting design in this game, the sound design, the map design, the art, everything is mysterious on purpose. And I feel like the old design of the lobby really, really helps that. So I really hope that that gets brought back. And then, of course, comparing it to the Phase 2 lobby, that immediately killed it because that lobby was perfectly lit everywhere. There were tons of areas to explore. And I understand the point of making it not boring, but also it kind of ruins the whole mood of the game going into it. And I feel like players shouldn't really be spending too much time in the lobby anyways. Like, games do actually fill up pretty quickly, or rather they did when the game was really popular. So especially if you're playing with friends, like, you don't need a super fancy lobby to be in. Like, setting the environment is really what's important there, in my opinion. And then we get to the biggest pet peeve of mine about this game, the sound design. Mob, with all due respect, you guys have changed the sound design of Project Playtime so many times, and I feel like every time it's becoming a little bit worse. I really liked a lot of aspects of the initial launch of the game's sound design. Obviously, there were a lot of flaws, and obviously they've been fixed. And there are a lot of flaws that are now back, so I'd like to just go through a couple of those and suggest solutions. Monster footsteps being a constant volume, especially on the new map, the Misfit Pit, is really terrible. Just because when I'm on like the first floor and the monster's on the third floor, it sounds like they're right next to me, but they're 2 floors above me. They're nowhere near me in reality. But according to what the game thinks, they're right on top of me, right? So I kind of wish that the sound could be made better so that way the sound, instead of just being one general sound that every player hears, it's individually, like, the sound is individual per player, like they do in like games like Rainbow Six Siege, for example, where if somebody is behind a wall, someone who's in the same room can clearly hear them, but someone who's on the other side of the wall can barely hear them. You know, stuff like that. But for the monster, especially because when the monster is actually near you, it ups the terror level so much because all of a sudden you can hear them. That means they're super close, right? Danger is near, that type of thing. Grapple hands sounding too extreme to the far left and right. That has been an issue for a little bit. That was an issue when the game first launched, then it got fixed. Then it was an issue when Phase 2 launched, then it got fixed, and now it's an issue again. When you fire your left and right hands, I'll let you listen to it for a second. It sounds like they're super far left and right. Like, it sounds like it's coming from the farthest, like, point of my hearing range, I guess, if that's how you want to describe it. I can't remember the term for it. But still, I feel like that needs to be fixed permanently and just honestly leave it alone. I'm not saying make it mono, but like 20% left, 20% right, because right now it sounds like 100% left and right, which that's just too extreme. Just because the hands are right in front of you and slightly to your left and right, they're not all the way out here. And yeah, overall, I feel like the sound design needs to just be put in a good place and just kept there, because as essential as sound is, once you get it right, you should stop touching it. This is more of a small detail, but I realize the visual aesthetic of like the players and the HUD is something that keeps getting changed, and I've noticed the changes that have been made. I'm not a fan of the new HUD because it's really, really impossible to tell what your health is because there's no indicator of it anywhere. But I feel like the original HUD, like the very first HUD from the game released, was super fitting to the time period that this game takes place in, which I realize it's not period accurate. Because it's a video game, right? Some things are going to be stylized and some things won't be completely historically accurate, but the look of it felt a lot better and more fitting to the game than what we currently have. And I honestly just hope it goes back to that because it was super easy to understand. The colors looked nice, like Alive was green, Down was orange, Hole, also known as like Feeding Pit, Sewer, was red, and Dead was blacked out, and then Train was purple. Like, I like the color coding too, because it just makes a lot more sense, and it's so much easier to track players that way. Oh, this is such a small issue, and I realize that, but it's happened with both phase launches, phase 2 and 3, that the third person toggle doesn't work. I don't know why this is even a problem when in the literal tutorial of the game, it shows you that, hey, T is toggle your first and third person. Just make it a keybind. Just let it be customized in the controls menu, because like I have pressed every key on my keyboard trying to figure it out and nothing will get me into third person anymore. So please just fix it. I realize that's a really small issue, but please fix it and leave it there. Now getting into the monster side of the game, there are quite a few things with the monsters that I feel like need to be tweaked, and a couple things that need to be completely overhauled and changed. For starters, at the beginning of matches now, you get a nice cinematic of the map and of the players, but you have no idea who the monster is. Now, obviously, an experienced player such as myself, as soon as the game starts and I hear footsteps, I immediately know which monster it is, because Huggies are slower, Mommies are faster, and Boxies sound completely different than Mommy and Huggy, and they just can't be confused with it. But I feel like that cinematic that's played at the beginning, it would be so much better if there was a cinematic of the players arriving on the train. So you still get to see all the players, but not like they're not the main focus of the cinematic. And then you get to see the map. And then there's something with the monster, either like breaking out of some kind of like doorway, breaking down some door to enter the facility, or just being there already and roaming around and being terrifying. I think that cinematic, especially because it's at the very beginning of the game, is such a good way to set the tone and the emotional atmosphere of the game, that this is a multiplayer horror game and it should feel like it. And right now it just doesn't feel like a horror game. And then one point that I've written down about this is actually 2 points. The first one is the new cinematic that I just suggested, where you see the train, you see the map, and then you see the monster. It makes the players feel like they're being thrown into this situation rather than indicating that they're the ones who put themselves there. Like, what I mean is this whole thing of like the game mode is extraction, right? You're going to this site to try to get these toy parts, build a toy, get the hell out, right? And you're trying to not get killed by the monster. As much as, yeah, you signed up to do this, it's like you shouldn't really know what to expect, and it should still feel terrifying every time, right? So I feel like that idea of the cinematic would just really set that tone perfectly, especially because it's not focusing on the players, it's focusing on the situation that the players are in and like the game mode itself, because obviously I know there's going to be more game modes in the future. So emphasizing that and the monsters a lot more would like make that cinematic 10 times better. And also, as much as skins are essential to making your character unique, other players can look at your skins for the entire game. Literally for the whole duration of the game, you can look at someone and be like, hey, that's a nice skin you've got on. But you shouldn't need to do that at the very beginning. Like, we don't need a slow pan of, hey, look at everyone's skins. Yeah, that's fine, but we can see them the whole time. We don't need a huge look at, or like a grand look at the players beforehand. And then the last thing I have for monsters is no monster should ever be able to one-tap a survivor. That should never, ever, ever be the case, because that's simply too overpowered. And everyone who's watching this video instantly knows that I'm talking about Huggy's Dash. I realize that it is one of his like essential abilities is that he just runs at you, but I don't think he should one-tap you. A couple players in my Discord server had different suggestions for what he could do. I had one person say that he like pins you and then runs you into a wall, then it just counts as a hit. And then I was just thinking it's just a sprint, and then when he catches a player, he hits them once. Like, that's it. But making it an instant kill, it's just way too overpowered. And no monster should ever be able to one-tap a survivor. Next, we have the feeding pit, which as soon as I played phase 3, I was so upset that they got rid of it. Bring back the feeding pit, please. It was such a brilliant way to keep the downed, the downed survivors involved in the game and still keep them in a stressful and creepy, eerie environment where they still have an objective to do. I felt like that was a very good way to execute that. I feel like the way that could be improved, because like one of the major complaints of the feeding pit was if one person's AFK down there and doesn't kill any Huggies, and another person comes in and the first person goes out, that next person now needs to hit all of them or they're instantly dead, right? And I've seen it happen in quite a few people's live streams and such over and over, and they get very upset about it. Just give each player their own set of Huggies. And I realize, like, you may be thinking, well, Squibby, that's going to look really weird that one player's just hitting a bunch of empty holes, but they're actually hitting Huggies. And honestly, it's not going to look that weird, because a strategy that we all do now is you just go around in a circle and you just hit every single one, whether it's got a Huggy in it or not. So I feel like if every player had their own Huggies and they each had their own like mini objective in there that they needed to do, it would just work so much better. And then one other thing about the feeding pit is bring back the original hollow sewer sound design that was down there. I know I've talked a lot about sound design, but I still think that this is really important. I'm going to show a clip here of like the original launch of the game. When I played the tutorial and went to the feeding pit, this is what it sounded like.
Probably. I'll send Phil to get you all out.
And this sound design, it just fits really well because it's super echoey, and it really makes the room feel super massive, and hearing those shrieks reverberate around the room, it just keeps the eeriness in the air. Like, it keeps the creepy factor there, and it holds it for longer because literally the sound is decaying out over a longer period of time. I don't know why they got rid of the reverb in there, because once you're in the feeding pit, that's the only thing you need to worry about and focus on. So the player's bandwidth is literally only focused on the feeding pit. So I feel like that should just be brought back. Like, the feeding pit in general should be brought back, but the original reverberated sound design is what should really be brought back. And last but not least, we have the claw machine puzzle. This one has been ticking me off since it's been added to the game. Not because I'm bad at it, but because that specific puzzle is so reliant on the host's connection that it's not even funny. 99% of the lobbies that I have played since the day the claw machine was added up until now, I refuse to do the claw machine puzzles because they run at such a bad frame rate because the host's connection is what that frame rate depends on and not my connection. So whenever I host lobbies, and if you look at any streams where I've hosted, the claw machine is just flawless. It runs at 60 frames, it picks up the right one every single time I hit the button. Whereas when other people are hosting, like, it can get really, really bad. But I also think that on top of that puzzle being way too dependent on the host's connection, that puzzle is practically useless just because it takes way too long to complete anyway. And it's so easy to fail it, but that's not even like my real problem with it. It's just that it depends on the host's connection. So if anything, many people have made videos suggesting new puzzles for Project Playtime. I think the claw machine needs to go and something else needs to come in. But yeah, that's everything I have so far for how to fix Project Playtime. Those are most of the big ideas that I was able to come up with. And Mob Games, I sincerely hope you can accept my apology for shitting on your game for a very long time. And I genuinely do apologize for that, because I realize that there are things that are really, really great about it, but there were also things that were ruined about it and things that aren't really great. So I'd rather be a team player here, and I'd rather try to suggest improvements instead of sitting here being like, oh, that sucks, that's terrible, and then just not doing anything about it. So there you go. Those are all my suggestions that I have for you now. I really hope that you watch this video and that you might consider fixing a few of these things or adding a few of these things in Project Playtime. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video or stream.